What's up, everybody? Happy 4th of July weekend. Once again, coming to you live. It is episode 33 of the Sports Hour Plus with Miller and Watson. Obviously, right now it's just Watson here today. Like I said, Morgan is honeymooning, so she's not here. So in her stead, it, sorry, some echo there. So sorry, y'all. Some echo there. Not supposed to happen, but we move live show. So in her stead is Clarence Taylor the Third, aka Trey, joining us once again. What's up, Trey? How you doing?
Feeling good. It's good to be back. This is a. It's funny because we've been talking about me getting on the show for a while because this is episode 33. We used to do a podcast together, so now 2 weeks in a row we're doing this again. So
Yeah, man. Crossover Sports Podcast, Legacy right there. Legacy, those of you that are
hmm
big fans of the show, you might see that in the background. That was the podcast that we had before that. We went on for like a good 2, 3 years before I went to grad school, and that kind of killed
yep.
it. But it was a good time, and still might get that big gang back together. Although I don't know, I don't know if y'all be ready for that one. But we might do that. We might do that. We got a couple weeks until Morgan get back, so we got 16 days. Maybe that'll happen. You never know. Um, but yeah, Trey's here. Y'all know we're gonna get into sports conversation. Hopefully give y'all a little break from the real world. We know it's crazy out there right now. What a week in politics and everything else that's going on before the 4th of July and everything. So hopefully we're gonna give you a little break from that. And get into these sports. But before we do that, make sure you give us a follow. Morgan is at M India Miller. Also, Morgan India Miller on Instagram as well. And I'm at Kylan W Watson on X/Twitter. I will not. I mean, I'll give you my Instagram. You can easily just search it. But Trey knows it's kind of complicated because it's not my name. So it's so if you just search my name on Instagram, you'll be able to find me. Some of you have done that already. But it is at courageous underscore and underscore bold underscore leo. So yeah, so very not my name. And Trey, he is just on Instagram. We went through this last week at Mr. Taylor Three Eyes. Is his Instagram, so definitely check him out there. And we'll get into the sports. All right, so breaking news for those of you that don't know, according to the Associated Press and Yahoo Sports, Jonte Porter, a guy who we talked about before, will be charged with a felony in relation to his sports betting scandal. Trey, your reaction to this?
Yeah, it's betting is always a tricky thing, right? It's legal in some countries, or rather, it's legal in some states here. Illegal in some, uh, and I'm sure people find their ways around it, right? Uh, and you know, Jonte Porter, he decided that he was going to, and I'll preface this by saying that it's very clear, even from what he said, that he had an addiction to gambling and betting. Um, but he decided to bet on games that he was playing in. Um, so I mean, it's a weird situation. It feels odd to see. Um, a player who had some promise. He was a young player who had some promise in the league, and now is banned, and may and potentially will face jail time. Um, because and it's not even like it was kind of like a one time thing, and he got caught. Um, it was like multiple games where he was essentially like he played 2 or 3 minutes, or play a short period of the game and then say he's sick and sit on the bench for the rest of the game so that people could bet the under on whatever stat line. um and it's obviously it's wrong, but it's just like one of those, you kind of question like what was he thinking. um and for those who have dealt with any sort of addiction, but in particular gambling or betting addiction, like that really is the question. Why, like, my gosh, what are you thinking? But when you're addicted to something, you're kind of caught up in the moment. You don't necessarily think about the consequences in the moment. And I'm sure right now Jonte Porter is thinking about those consequences, because right now these consequences are very, very serious. It's not like it's a state issue or a city. These are federal charges being filed against him, a federal felony. So it's it makes sense, obviously, to ban him, but it's a sad situation, truthfully, to be honest with you. So I hope he is able to, despite obviously the obvious serious criminal charges against him, kind of get better, and hopefully he hasn't. Hopefully he can stop gambling. Period, whether it's legal or not. So yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kyle.
I mean, it's a crazy time, right? For those of you who've been fans of the show, remember probably a few weeks ago, maybe even about a month or two ago, Morgan and I talking about this, and that Jonte Porter, being a Toronto Raptor at the time, was basically like, I don't know, and I won't pretend to know Canadian betting laws, but he did a big no-no whether you're in Canada or America, because he basically fixed games, and that's what cost him his NBA career. He'll probably never get it back, and now he might actually go to jail. And it's crazy, and it just speaks to, like Trey said, like the addiction of sports betting. That's why. And we don't know what the NBA rules are, but I'm sure they're going to change it now. Whatever the rules are, that you can't bet on your own games, if that wasn't obvious enough. And I really do think that he definitely needs help. I don't necessarily know if he needs jail, but he did cost a lot of people money. Like I said, as Trey pointed out, my man would score just enough points. And I think he was like a 10 to 12 point scorer. So like he'd get like 7 8 points, make sure he met his prop bets. Like Trey said, calling sick, ass out, do the stuff. And then I believe the Raptors would lose by the same exact point total he averages. So, he wasn't smart. Often, as we say, like people who do this stuff, if they were smart, they would never be caught. So, and it's very unfortunate. And I hope Jonte gets the help that he needs. He won't have a basketball career, so I hope he's good at something else. Unfortunately for him, but that's just what happens when you're addicted, and it's a bad time and a bad thing, especially when you're fixing games. Um, it's like we said, right? Like the NBA and a bunch of other sports leagues are getting more in bed with these sports betting companies, and more things like this. We hope it doesn't happen, but they're more prone to happen because you're throwing Raptors versus Sixers sponsored by FanDuel, right? Or whatever the betting partner is. I believe it's FanDuel for the NBA, right? DraftKings and FanDuel for the NFL. Like you're throwing around all these betting partners, so it's kind of hard not to bet. And I'm sure he could probably got a discounted rate because he's a NBA player and stuff like that. But no one expected him to be betting on games, right? And it's kind of crazy. And like I said, I hope he gets the help that he needs. And if you do the crime, you got to do the time. As we're fond of saying, play stupid games, win stupid prizes, right? So like it's a whole thing. Mess around and find out whatever one you want to use. Obviously, I use the clean version of that saying, but it's a whole thing. And it's a shame, but that's what happens. And we're getting some comments from our viewers. RC's talking about Kevin Porter Jr. is about to get another chance at the Clippers after his incident. I suppose it's because he was found not guilty. And we're not getting the Kevin Porter Jr., but actually we might. If Trey wants to bring that up for free agency. Yeah, it's kind of different, right? Because you got one that's like a moral crime, right? Domestic abuse, which I don't support at all. But and then you have the sports betting, and obviously the bigger sports crime is the sports betting because that affects games, but the moral one is the domestic violence, and this one kind of like the NFL. I mean, when you're talented, you get other chances. I mean, I don't think many people were searching for Kevin Porter, but you know, the Clippers had a need there without Paul George, and he kind of fits that forward guard need. So that's kind of what it is. It's unfortunate, but that's what it is. And obviously, you got Miles Bridges too. He's still looking for a team, and we'll see what happens with that. RC also said we'll suspend him for a full year, even 2 years. If he got caught again, then it would have been a lifetime ban. Yeah, Adam Silver is not that person that plays around. Like he's the person like Tim Donaghy only had like what was it, 3-4 years of doing it, and they just cut him off from the league totally and like did a whole change around referees. Like the NBA is not a half measure league, a half measure sports league.
Right. I
Like
mean, he came right in with the Clippers and what's his name? Donald what was
Sterling.
his name? Donald Sterling. That was like one of his first initial things as commissioner was,
Yeah,
no, you're done for life. There's no ifs,
yeah,
ands, or buts.
yeah.
We don't mess around with that.
Yeah, Adam
Goodbye.
Silver's a lawyer, so there's no half measures with lawyers. Like it is what it is with him. So like he doesn't for the love of the game because a lot of people have a lot of sports conspiracies and basketball is one of the main ones outside of football that gets all these sports conspiracies. So you kind of gotta nip it in the butt, right? If you're Adam Silver for the good of the game. But moving right along, thanks RC. Y'all definitely comment, and subscribe. Forgot to say that to the channel. It's my channel on here, but you can get to see Trey's got a channel. I believe he linked it or talked about it last week, so definitely check that out as well. We'll get to that more as we do, but definitely like as you see, you get famous, right? We put you on, we talk about your comment. Oh, don't y'all want that? So definitely comment some more. But getting back to the next question, will Porter getting charged make pro athletes not want to cheat the game / bet on sports? I can start here. You would hope so, but I mean, we've seen this. Like Trey said, like when you're addicted, you're addicted. Like I don't mean to equate a gambling addiction with a drug addiction, but it's sort of the same thing, right? The gambling addiction is, I can make money, right? It's not. I'm not as bad as a drug addict, right? Because I'm spending money. Whereas with sports betting, I'm spending money and I might get some money. Even though we all know the house always wins, right? We all know that. Sorry to break it to you if you don't know that. The house always wins. so like if you need any more references to that, see the movie 21. Like, there's a bunch of betting movies that tell you all this, right? But it's very, you would hope so. But we see it in the NFL, they still bet. Now, obviously, in the NFL, they weren't betting on games. But they did it a little too much, and the NFL came, suspended them for a couple of games, like RC was talking about, right? Whereas in the NBA, it was a lifetime ban, just because, like we said, it's a little different because John Tay, as Trey so eloquently described, right, was cheating the game, scoring like 8-10 points, hitting his props just right, asking out, saying he was sick or something, and then the Raptors would lose or they won some of those games, but I think they mostly lost those games by the exact amount of points he averaged. So it's kind of a different thing. I mean, you would hope so. I would hope that athletes are not stupid. Like I know for some of the football players, the reason why the NFL got them was they were betting under their name, under their screen name. We don't know how they got Jonte Porter, but we assume it was because it was so obvious that he kept asking out of games, and the NBA is just gonna definitely investigate that. But I hope so. There's no. You always have people that test the thing, but I hope so, and I hope that nobody loses their career over something so simple, especially when you make millions of dollars. I know that the temptation is there because it's like for athletes, some of them I talked about, like the sports bettors are almost as bad as the fantasy people, right? Jumping into their DMs and saying, "I lost my prop bet because you only scored 20 points and missed your over on assists by like one." I think there were a lot of guards talking about that. That some of y'all are almost as bad as fantasy people. And fantasy people, as somebody who's a fantasy player, but I'm not jumping into Jalen Hurts' DMs and being like, "Dog, if you only had one more touchdown, I could have won." Some of y'all are ridiculous with this stuff. So like, stop doing that. Stop jumping into players' DMs and ruining their lives. You see them in public, you want to talk about how they lost you your prop bet. Maybe you shouldn't be betting on the props. So like, just go for the game, right? I am of the mindset that people are going to do what they want to do, and we would hope that people would be smart, but we know that these athletes want some quick money, even though they make a lot of money. But I hope that they're smarter. And after seeing what happened to the NFL players, obviously to Jonte Porter, that people would get rid of their betting stuff. If they're going to bet, just let the family members do it on their behalf, on their accounts, so that way it doesn't get back to them. It's just your friendly. I don't bet myself, but I mean, if you're gonna do it, at least do it through a third party, like a family, girlfriend, whatever, so it doesn't come back to you, and that way it doesn't look like you cheating the game. Trey, you go right ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to say no, I don't think so. I don't think it's going to really scare anybody from betting. I think it'll. I'll put it this way: it's not going to stop people from betting, right, on games or on sports. We're we're way beyond that, right?
Right.
Betting is just sports betting is massive at this point.
Right.
Like you mentioned before, you have major betting outlets like FanDuel and DraftKings that are sponsoring NBA and NFL games. So no, in that sense, it's not going to stop anybody from just simply betting on games. Will it partially deter people from doing what Jonte did as far as betting on games that they're playing in? Absolutely. Because I'm sure there are some players who probably were, and maybe even some refs and coaches that were and haven't gotten caught yet, right? Because maybe they're a little bit more savvy with it or sneaky with it, whatever you want to put it. And so they haven't gotten caught yet. And now they see, oh shoot, they banned him for life, and he's got federal charges. All right, let me back off. Now, does that mean that everybody that is doing it? Because I guarantee you, Jonte Porter is not the only person who's doing what he was doing. I'm sure there are other people that they're just not getting caught, right? Because maybe they're a little bit, like I said, they're a little bit more savvy with it.
Right. They're not asking out of
will
game. Still playing.
will other people get caught and charged? Maybe. But I don't. We're not going to see some like crazy influx where we're going to see 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 players. This large influx of players get lifetime bans or get caught betting on, in particular, on their games. So yeah, that's all I can really say on it. In some sense, yes, it'll deter. I think it'll slow some people down, but nobody's going to stop betting. That's for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that most people or most smart athletes don't bet on their league or their sport. Obviously, like I know football players can't bet on football, right? I guess the NBA clearly had that rule. Otherwise, Jonte would have been banned. So like, I imagine that they let them bet, just not on basketball. So I'm right there with you. It's not going away, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on if you're a degenerate sports bettor or somebody that's just there for the love of the game.
Right.
So yeah, but moving right along to the biggest story of this week so far, NBA free agency. Oh my goodness, man. We started with a bang, man. A bang, Y'all thought last week was crazy with the Knicks trading 5 picks and the bodega to Brooklyn for Mikal Bridges. And they here come the Sixers getting Paul George. Here comes the Mavericks signing and trading for Klay Thompson. I mean, crazy. And the crazy part is, right, it only started on Sunday, right? Obviously, the biggest gun, Paul George, is off the board, and the second and third biggest guns, Contavious Caldwell Pope and Klay Thompson, are off the board now. So now is where the real fun begins, where you see trades or players signing max extensions. That's what happened with Donovan Mitchell. Crazily enough, he really bucked convention, because I definitely thought he would ask out. But as we've seen, right, the second apron, man, the story of free agency has to be the second apron to me. But Trey, I'm gonna let you go, man. Winners and losers, or give me your quick thoughts on that, and then we'll get to winner and losers. Like, what you think? What you think about free agency so far?
I think it's, this is not a this is not one of those off seasons where you look and 3 or 4 of the top 10 players in the league are available, right? We've had that a couple times in the last decade. Um, but it is a very important offseason for a lot of teams, right? Like the Celtics re-signing Jason Tatum to that super max, right? Got 2 of the richest players in NBA history on the same team, making over 300 million. Um, the Paul George going to the Sixers. There's questions about where Russell Wilson is going to end up. Is he going to stay in the Clippers, or are they going to end
Russell
up trading
Westbrook.
him somewhere? Russell Westbrook.
Oh.
Um, and I think probably the biggest question I think this offseason was Klay Thompson, just because of the legacy he has at the Warriors and how long he was there. So for me, it's been interesting to watch, right? And as a Sixers fan, it's been fun. It's nice that we got probably the biggest fish in the sea at this free agency in Paul George. As far as winners, obviously the Sixers are a big winner. I think the Mavs are a winner for pulling Klay over. And I think in my opinion, I would say probably one of the biggest losers is the Warriors. Unfortunately, I mean, they decided to go with Draymond Green instead of trying to work something out with Klay. So he went somewhere else, right? And then they just signed. I always forget his name, but he has a
Melton and Kyle Anderson.
Kyle Anderson, right? To what is like a 3-year, $27 million contract. So it's not a massive contract, but you're just kind of sitting there questioning, like, and we'll talk about this later. What are the Warriors doing, and what is their future when it comes to, the potential for, the playoffs and future championships. So yeah, in my mind, the biggest loser right now is the Warriors so far, and the Clippers. But as far as winners, there's a lot of teams that have won. Mavericks have won, Sixers have won, Celtics. Literally, they won the championship and they locked in their guy. Right? They have some other moves they got to make, but and the Timberwolves kind of quietly, they had a really good draft, and they've made some small pickups here and there. They just signed. Forget who they signed. I think it was today.
You talking about Joe Ingles?
Yeah, Joe Ingles is a nice veteran. He's an older guy, but he's a veteran guy who can shoot, bring veteran leadership to that team, which can only help, right, when you got a young team like that. So that's just my quick thoughts right there.
Yeah, I think on my end, I mean, the biggest winners are like before I even get to the teams, like the biggest winner is the NBA. I mean, right? Like they specifically, like with this new CBA, right? They wanted to make it essentially impossible for you to create like a super duper team, right? Like even though we love super teams, especially if you're a basketball number one sport, like me, I mean that's the NBA, right? You always have a super team or a dominant team. And, the NBA has gotten bang for their buck. We haven't had a champion that repeats since the Warriors did it in 19, right? Or, I'm sorry, not 19, but, 2021, I think was when they won again, right? 19 was the Raptors. 20, I believe, was the Bucks. And then you had 2021 was the Warriors again, was, I think, their last championship because that was, oh, yeah. You're on mute, so I can't.
The last repeat would have been those last 2 years of the Cavs Warriors, though. We haven't had a repeat champion since then.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like the last repeat champion would have been the Warriors 18.
So I guess of the 17-18 and then 18-19 season, I think.
Yeah. The last repeat was the Warriors. And then 17-18 the Warriors. Then obviously they won again a couple of years ago when they beat the Celtics, when they beat the crap out of the Celtics. Y'all know I had to throw that one in there for the Celtics. But they won obviously, but the biggest winners before I even get to the teams, right? NBA, so Adam Silver and them with the CBA and the second apron, because if you really want to get serious, and for those that don't know, I'll just do a quick explain on the second apron. What happens in the second apron is basically you get over, so like you have repeat offenders, right? Like the Celtics, the Warriors, the Clippers, right? Repeat offenders who have a lot of money. They have a lot more contracts. Basically, it's like there are a lot of bloated contracts, right? It's like the Yankees and the Red Sox back when they had the orange race where they had basically everybody. And obviously there's no salary cap in baseball. um, Whereas in the other three major sports there is. So like you have all that, and so what the second apron is, if you go over the luxury tax, you pay more taxes. You can't sign players in the buyout, as what happened to the Celtics. They won the championship, and even though they had like a top 10, top 15 pick from the trades for Drew and Kristaps, they automatically went to 30 because they were over and couldn't really absorb that $2, $5, $7 million of a top 10, top 15 pick. So a lot of teams don't want to do that anymore. And so that's why you see, obviously, it doesn't matter for the Celtics, but that's why you see, like, we're not going to, I should have put this in here, so we'll probably talk about it later. But this is why you see the Celtics owners now being like, oh, we're out, because they see the disaster upcoming in the next 2 years when they have to pay Kristaps Porzingis, and then they'll have 5 players making 250 or more, and then they'll be over the tax, and they won't be able to get picks, won't be able to get buyout contracts, right? This is why the Celtics had to do all their damage by getting Kristaps and Drew Holiday last offseason, because they couldn't really draft anybody or do buyouts. That's what happened with the Clippers. This is why Paul George is a Sixer. They didn't want to give him that 4-year, basically $200 million. Didn't want to pay him more than they paid Kawhi because they didn't want to go over that.
That's part of the reason why the Warriors couldn't bring back Clay even if they wanted to. It would have had to been like some sort of vet minimum.
Yeah, so the Warriors are a little bit different because that's just totally Joe Lacob and Bob Myers' arrogance. That's what that
right.
That's really.
I think it's that, but it is a little bit of the luxury tax too, though, because they couldn't, like, there was thoughts of trading for some other players and stuff like that, and they, like, because of what you're talking about, they can't. There's certain players that they just can't bring on board. Like, even if technically the contract, like if you're thinking about this in a 2K NBA 2K type of sense, where you got these 3 players and these picks and these 3 players and these picks, right? It matches up, and that thing on the bottom is going to turn green, but they can't do it because of all the rules around contracts and what type of contracts they can take on.
Right. Yep. So for me, the losers. So the winners obviously are the NBA. And obviously an obvious winner, Daryl Morey, right? Daryl Morey won. We'll get to him in a minute, but promise got Philadelphia, got the Sixers and the fans to believe, hey, we're going to take a gap year. I promise you that James Harden calling me a liar is not going to affect, us getting a big time free agent, was basically what he was saying. And all of us were like, well, I wasn't. I was optimistic that he had a plan. But everybody else was like, oh, it's not going to work. Trey knows. He's been in a lot of groups of people yelling at me for being too overly optimistic. And Daryl Morey got his big fish. And if you played NBA 2K, I just made an if you played the My Career from a couple of years ago, you know that there was a whole thing in that My Career where you fish with Paul George. So I made an unintentional reference there to whatever 2K that was. But yeah, like, that he got his big fish, right? So he was a winner. But let me get to my losers, and then I'll get to my winning teams, because I just talked about the NBA being a winner and Daryl Morey. But as far as losing teams, the Nuggets losing KCP and not really being able to replace him. Maybe you replace him with Russell Westbrook. And obviously Russell Westbrook gives them more offensive punch. But I mean, that's not really what the Nuggets are lacking. The Nuggets, what they're lacking is bench depth, and somebody who's a lockdown defender, and that was KCP. And if they do get Russell Westbrook is a okay defender, but he's not locked down, and that's what they need, right? Especially next to, and all due respect to him, Nikola Jokic, right? The 3-time MVP winner. He's a great offensive player and great player, but a defender he is not. So like, you need some wing defense around Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, and they don't really have it. Plus, they don't have the depth. I said losing Bruce Carter, losing Jeff Green really came up to bite them, as I said it would this year, and losing KCP is going to bite them too. It's a really big loss to their starting 5, even if they do replace it with Russell Westbrook. So they lost. They're a loser to me. I think the Bucks are a loser. I know they just got Torian Prince, but they they you gotta do more than that, and they are going to lose Brooke Lopez again. It's like we talked about the second apron and teams not being willing to go over it. Right, gonna lose Brooke Lopez more than likely. Going to lose Bobby Portis, who might end up being a Sixer. Hint, hint. There, no sources there, but he fits what the Sixers want: a stretch five, a stretch four, maybe, or Dorian Finney-Smith. So that they're a loser to me as well. So the Nuggets, the Bucks, obviously last two championship winners there. I think that they're a loser. The Cavaliers too to me are losers just because like I know they got what they wanted in getting Donovan Mitchell to come back, but I don't really know if that's going to be a good thing, right? Because you got Kenny Atkinson, you're going to have Donovan Mitchell for another 3 years. They're not going to make the finals now. Like they're probably like the fifth best team, right? Or sixth, depending on how you slide it, right? You got the Celtics, you got the Sixers, you got the Knicks, you got the Bucks doing this, you got the Pacers doing this, and then you've got the Cavaliers in between, maybe not. If something happens with those other teams who, if they struggle with injury or something, but I don't really see what the Cavaliers are doing, so they're a loser to me, even though they won getting Donovan Mitchell to sign, which I know I thought was impossible. I don't know what Trey thought about it, but I thought he would be in LA. Obviously, New York Knicks were taken off the table once they got Mikal Bridges. And the Knicks are pretty much done. They won't be able. They're going to be over the second apron once they re-sign all their players and stuff. So you won't have to worry about the Knicks being a part of any big time trades anytime soon. Everybody's basically going to be a Net or a Thunder. So that's where I'm at. Oh, and the Miami Heat losers too. Probably going to lose Caleb. About to lose Jimmy Butler for nothing. Like, we were always told Miami was a destination, but those days are clearly long gone. And obviously winners, Philadelphia 76ers, OKC Thunder, two teams really filling out the roster around their young stars. Like Trey said too, like the Mavericks, like losing players, but getting Najee and Klay Thompson. Big get for the Mavs. I don't really think it makes them a title contender, and we'll get to that. But a big get getting Klay and Najee Marshall as well. Obviously, the Pelicans, even though they didn't do anything for free agency, but just getting DeJounte Murray because they're really cap strapped too. So getting DeJounte Murray before free agency started, getting your point guard or shooting guard of the future, depending on how you slide it with him and CJ McCollum. CJ McCollum will probably not be there. And probably along with Brandon Ingram too, but we will see. That is still yet to be determined. But yeah, those are my winners and losers right there. And we'll move right along to the Klay Thompson of it all, right? Trey kind of talked about this. Klay Thompson leaving the Golden State Warriors for the Dallas Mavericks. I was shocked. Like, I honestly thought he would end up here in the Eastern Conference, right? Either as a Sixer or a Magic. I kind of thought that the Magic would get the big player. They kind of did. They got Contavious Caldwell Pope, but I think the splash would have been to get Klay Thompson. But they didn't wind up getting him. And he goes to the Dallas Mavericks. Like I said, big get for Dallas. I think the Mavericks might be the best team in Dallas now. They're definitely better than the Cowboys. I think that they're definitely if everything goes right, title contender, right? So what I mean by that, if the Nuggets fall off, which they probably will do, right? If the Timberwolves and the Thunder fall off, then like they have their third star now. So we got big threes in Dallas and Philly. Some people would say a big four. I just call it a big two in New York City. You really have a big. You have a legit big four in Boston, but obviously it's really a big 3.5 because love Kristaps, but he's always injured and he's not going to be there for most of the season next year. Breaking news for you Celtics fans, you already knew that because Brad Stevens already said it last week. But it's really a big 3.5 with the Killer Jays and Drew Holiday. So you got that's their big three or big four when Kristaps is healthy. So you really got some big teams, but to the Mavericks of it all, yeah, man, big get for the Mavericks. Who says that big time free agents don't want to come to Dallas? And look, Luka and Kyrie made it work, and so Klay really it was attractive to him to go to Dallas. Not the team that I thought he would wind up going to, but big ups to Dallas. My reaction is that's going to be a crazy big three if they get like Klay Thompson, even at his current stuff, scoring like 15. If he can up it to 20, which he should have ample opportunity to do next to Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. You know, Kyrie Irving is more of the playmaker than Luka. I know some of y'all think I just did blasphemy, but like Luka, I mean, he's a point guard, but not really like a Jason Kidd level point guard. His assists, when you really think about it, are like for every highlight play, most of those assists are really empty. Like, and so like, you know, I am of the mindset that Klay Thompson will at least be able to score 20, 22 points a night, playing next to Luka and Kyrie with all the wide open shots they'll create for him. So yeah, that's why I'm at with it. What about you, Trey?
I'm gonna. So obviously, this is a big win. I wouldn't call it a big three. But it is a win, obviously, for the Dallas Mavericks to pick up a guy like Klay Thompson. Now, for me, it's an if, and there's some other ifs that we'll talk about in free agency as well later on. But I think it's an if with him, right? So he averaged, I think, something like 17 during the regular season, shot very poorly in the playoffs. And so the real question here is, can Klay remain? Can he go back to form, right? Can he get back to 18 to 20 a game, right? Consistently hitting over 40%, and be a solid, a slightly above average defender. I don't know. When you have multiple, you got an Achilles injury and you got all these other that's hard, especially at the age of 34, 35. We'll see. I'm excited to see what's going to happen. I do not. This is where I disagree with you, Kyle. And I don't think that we're going to see this like magical, return to form. I think Klay is going to be, for the rest of his career, most likely is going to be this 15 to 17 point guy who's going to give you very consistent shooting as long as he's healthy, and is going to be, at best an average, maybe slightly above average defender for you. And I think I think what he brings other than that to the court for the Mavericks, I think he really brings in combination with Kyrie is championship experience, right? Kyrie was on that Cavs team for 3 years, I believe. And got to play with LeBron and go against the Warriors for years. So he's familiar with Klay in his game, very familiar. And has a ring against the Warriors, against Klay Thompson. And the same for Klay, right? Klay, he knows Kyrie's game very well. And played against him, 3 years in a row, during those Cavs Warriors runs. But we'll see. I think they are definitely a better team, but the Mavericks also did lose some key players. They lost 2 or 3 really good players. They did add some younger players to replace those 3 players in Tim Hardaway. They lost Josh Green. So I mean, we'll see, right? Like, they've got to round out that roster and make sure they've got the right pieces in place. It's not a big three, but they are a better team. And given that they were able to go so far this year without Klay Thompson, I think the sky is the limit for the Dallas Mavericks. It's just a matter of, can they maintain what they were doing last year?
Yeah, I think so. Let me clarify here. Like, I'm only saying that Klay will get back to his averages because he's I'm just accounting for the fact that between Kyrie and Luka that he'll have wide open shots, right? That's all I'm saying with that. That he'll get back to scoring like 18, 20 points because he won't have to share with Steph Curry. Luka takes those YOLO well contested threes anyway. So that's why I think he'll get back to at least 20 points a game. But obviously, I think that he's still even right now. I mean, this is what I think, right? He's going to be an angry Klay Thompson, and angry Klay Thompson, I think, will be better for the Mavericks. Now, what does that look like? We'll see. But I think it's still a big three. Just because, I mean, they're not going to get 17 to 18, 19, 20 a game from anybody else on that roster that they have right now. Maybe you get it from Najee Marshall on a day where he's like hitting everything like he did against the Sixers against the Pelicans, right? But like, it's that's not likely to happen. But so the question at hand, that's really what these Mavericks fans care about. Does the addition of Clay make the Mavs a title contender? No. Like I said, it is a. I think that they went to the finals. Everything worked out for them. They faced two inexperienced teams and the Timberwolves and the Thunder, and they were able to take advantage of them. But I think that, if everything works out the way it's supposed to, and this is the NBA, so things don't always work out the way they're supposed to. But I don't think even with Klay Thompson, they're better than Minnesota. I don't think that they're better than OKC now that they've got Alex Caruso, and it seems like OKC, like, Minnesota constructed a team to beat Denver. It seems OKC is constructing a team specifically to beat Dallas. With Alex Caruso, it seems like it's specifically to beat Dallas. And they've got Rob Dillingham now, and like they got more lanky defenders. It seems like they're specifically constructing a team to beat Dallas. So like I just feel like if you have like OKC constructing a team to beat Dallas. Minnesota's constructed to beat them everybody but OKC. And like I just think that like something like it would have to go the way it went this year for Dallas to be back in the finals, and I don't think that's going to happen anymore with a more experienced OKC, a more experienced Dallas, and an angry Denver, but an even more weaker Denver. And that's I haven't even mentioned like the Clippers, the Lakers, all the other teams that'll be in there. A Phoenix Suns team looking to prove something or trade everybody. Like I don't see it for Dallas. I think they blew their best opportunity at a title. I didn't think that they would really beat the Celtics anyway, but but no, I don't think they're a title contender. Trey.
I'm gonna disagree with you. I think they are a title contender, right? But they're in a class of multiple title contenders, right? I think um, for a while the league was in a spot where you had a lot of teams, Sixers included. This year I guess it was the Pistons, but I think overall, generally speaking, um, we've seen a lot more parity in the league over the last 3 to 4 years, um, and I didn't see the Mavs as a team that was going to make it to the finals at the beginning of the season. I didn't, I was looking at that and I'm like, okay, that's that they're playing really well towards the end of the season in particular, but I think they are a title contender. But there are other teams in the West that are also title contenders, right? I think the Timberwolves are title contenders. I think the Thunder are, right? So now if you're saying, okay, are these teams, are you looking at every team in the NBA, the top, let's say 5 teams on each in the East and the West, and saying, okay, who are the teams realistically that can win a championship? Maybe the Mavs are on the outside looking in from that. But for me, the way that they played in the playoffs, if they, as I mentioned with adding Clay, if they're able to play like they did in the playoffs and seamlessly add Clay into that, right? I don't see any reason why. It's not. I don't necessarily think that they're going back to the chip next year per se, right? But I don't see any reason why they're not a team to watch out for, in terms of getting there, right? Like they've been there. And they got a good young team, right? Obviously, Kyrie is one of the older players, and Clay will be probably the oldest player on the team at this point. But yeah, so in some sense, I do think that they are a threat to go back, right? Will they win, and are they a true so-called title contender? Maybe not.
Yeah, RC agrees with me. Clay is cool, but not enough to get them over the hump. I agree, RC. I think that, like I said, against the Timberwolves, against the Thunder, I think that Dallas will lose against the more experienced, either one of those more experienced teams, but we'll see. That's what's great about free agency right now. Everything is on paper. It's nothing's confirmed until October, so we'll see. But moving right along, thanks RC for your comment too. Um, what does losing Clay mean for Golden State? Trey, I'll let you start on this one.
So it means a lot, right? So on one hand, they lost a lifetime warrior, or somebody who we thought was going to be a lifetime warrior. I'm sure as he gets to the end of his career, he'll go back to the Warriors and retire as a Warrior. He spent too much time there, won too many championships, not for that not to be the case, right? I don't think that's like a burned bridge. He signed a 3-year deal. I believe it's technically a 3-year deal or a 2-year deal with a 3rd-year player option. I could be mistaken on that. Um, so depending on what happens in Dallas, right? Like that could be he stays there for a year or two and then dips out. Maybe he goes to LA like his dad wanted him to. Or maybe he goes back to the Warriors and ends up retiring. It all depends on how things play out in Dallas. For the Warriors, though, right, and we'll talk a little bit more in detail about this, but we're starting to sniff the end of something special, right? The Warriors, when you look at that roster, right, it was a perfect pairing of 3 players, right? You had KD for a little bit, but the combination of Steph, Clay, and Draymond was seamless, right? You might have seen them arguing on the court or off, even maybe off the court, in the locker room, whatever the case may be. But Draymond talked about that in his podcast. Like he said, it brought him to tears because that was they're like brothers, right? So for the Warriors, it's like I'll liken it to a situation I had back in high school. I had a friend of mine who was our point guard on the basketball team. And for those who listen, this is not like he didn't die or anything, but so he was our point guard, best player on the team by far, right? But he ended up leaving and went to another school. It was a whole situation. It's fine. I won't get into details, but when he left, everybody was kind of like, it was a shock because it was unexpected for him to be leaving, and then also those who played on the basketball team were kind of like, dang, we might be cooked, to use some Gen Z language. But there was also this other feeling of, it was almost like a mourning, because it was like, oh, because we were, not only is he our teammate, but for those who were students at the school, we had some homeschoolers that played as well. For those who were students, it was kind of like, dang, we're also losing a friend at school too. And I'm sure for on that level, from a relational level, the Warriors are feeling that, right? And I think that's the whole organization. That's not just, Steph and Draymond. That's the other players on the team. That's for Coach Kerr. Like that's, so there's that, right? That's what it means for the Warriors from a relational standpoint. From a basketball perspective, right? You lost the second, arguably the second best, and you can even make an argument that he is the better shooter than Steph. There's even an argument there, just from if you're talking about just jump shot, pure. Clay has the more pure jump shot, I guess you would say.
So if you're a basketball purist, then yeah, he's got the better jumper.
Right.
I'll say it like this: he's got the more consistent jumper, right? Like when you watch his shot, it's more. You would think it's more consistent, but I think Steph has him beat by a couple percent.
Yeah. But he's at worst, he's a top 3 shooter of all time, I'd say, probably, right? It's like it's him, Ray Allen, and Klay Thompson, and then maybe Reggie Miller.
Yeah.
So you're losing that, whether he's completely healthy or not. You're losing that, right? He wasn't hitting at the same clip he was, 2 or 3 years ago. I think he shot like 38, 39% last season. But that's a big thing to miss in this NBA when threes are so crucial to the game, right? And the Warriors were already struggling. So you've got a aging Steph, right, who's 38 now, I think. 37, 38. You've got Draymond, who's around that age as well. They're closing in on 36, right? So, you got
That's 36.
Steph is 36. You got Draymond, who is probably around that age too. But you got players that are pushing. They're getting closer and closer to 40, and they're at the end of their careers. Right? Draymond has taken a massive fall off on the court and just generally off the court as well, and some of the things that he's dealt with
Draymond is
personally.
30. Draymond is 34. So him and
Okay.
Clay are the same age.
Um, and so when you look at the Warriors, you ask yourself the question, and I want to answer this just yet, but you ask yourself, okay, well, what does this mean going forward? Is this the end of what we knew as the Warriors dynasty? Are we nearing the end for Steph? Like, how many more years is he gonna play? So that's what that means for the Warriors.
Yeah, so for me, right, I definitely agree with mostly everything you said. I think the window, right, Clay is a big loss. Obviously, like you said, you hit the familial aspect of it. It's a big loss because you don't really have that threat, right? But this is kind of what happened with the Warriors when Clay wasn't there and Steph sat down. They didn't really have a person who was really threatening. That was Jordan Poole, right? They didn't really have a scorer like that. And Draymond was never a scorer. He was more of a defender, passer anyway, right? He would always get you with that fake pass layup. I mean, I don't know how many times I got sick of watching that work against Cleveland multiple times, against the Celtics multiple times. I'm all like, bro, this is on tape, and y'all keep falling for it, right? So
Yeah,
like he would always get people with that fake pass layup thing. So like yeah, but on a level like without Clay, even before the injury and during the injury, right? They didn't really have a second scorer. So I am of the mindset that like they're gonna miss Clay Thompson, Jonathan Kaminga. Somebody gonna have to take a leap. They might get Buddy Hield. That's not confirmed yet. But Kyle Anderson is not a scorer. Buddy Hield can be that scorer, and next to Steph with creating all them shots, he'll probably get. You'll probably see if the sign and trade with the Sixers actually happens. I think Shams kind of jumped the gun on that, got everybody hype, and then it kind of disappeared. So we don't even know if it's going to be an actual thing or not. So like you've got Buddy Hield that might be incoming. So that might give you like 17, 18, 19 a night. But Buddy Hield, sometimes he's on, sometimes he's not. As I know, a lot of Sixers fans watching this now or watching it later are going to hear me say that. Like he was great for the Sixers in that game 6 when they needed him. He helped them extend that series. But a lot of people really wanted to see that more consistently, and the Joel Embiid injury kind of threw that into a tailspin. But like we'll see. I think he should be good with the Warriors, but I don't know if that's a championship roster. But I definitely think I say this all the time, right? Like Josh Allen was talking about the window is as long as his career is. That's Steph Curry, man. As long as Steph Curry is breathing, the Warriors got a chance. So like that's just it. And like Steph Curry seems to be able to beat Father Time, even though he's 36 years old. I know most of y'all are shocked that he's even that close to 40, right? But like, that's what happens when you spend a lot of money on your body, and all you really got to do is be able to be faster than people and shoot. So I just think that I think it's a big loss for the Warriors. I think they don't really have enough scoring to replace it. I don't even think that getting Paul George would have replaced the scoring that Klay Thompson does. But Paul George is definitely more of a shot creator than Klay Thompson and Buddy Hield, so it would have helped them in that aspect. But I think it's a big loss. I think it's one that's going to be felt for a while in Golden State. And I feel like you'll see it every time Steph Curry goes to sit down on the bench. And I mean, for a rest, for anything, right? And you're going to watch the Golden State's offense do this without Klay Thompson and without, Jonathan Kaminga and them could take a step. Obviously, no one's played any meaningful basketball yet, but I don't even know if that's a threat because, like you said, you don't have the second or third best shooter in basketball history anymore. You just have the top shooter.
yeah.
He's going to get triple
I guess they
teams
do
because
still have Andrew Wiggins, but we'll see.
yeah,
If he's able to take a step forward. I mean, he's almost 30 as
the
well.
writing's
So
on the wall there. He won't be there. The writing's on the wall there. So
yeah,
like I'm just of the mindset that to go to the next question, right? Even though the window is as long as Steph Curry's breathing, I think that arrogance is really really, really hindering the Warriors, right? I've said this before. I think the fact that Joe Lacob and Bob Myers, who's now on ESPN, allowed the arrogance of Draymond Green and his compulsiveness really ruined that team, right? They had a chance to be a dynasty forever with Kevin Durant. He ruined that by yelling at him. Obviously, Kevin Durant was probably going to leave anyway, but that whole episode expedited that process. Kevin Durant said it himself. Draymond Green has admitted it, right? I was saying as I told one of our Warriors fan friends, Amina, about this, and she didn't want to believe it. But I said that team was weird after that punch. You can say that like Jordan Poole may have deserved to get punched anyway, but that was your third best scorer, and nothing was right with that team after that. Like it's the equivalent. What happened to the Warriors is the equivalent of what happens when you let, for you football fans, right, a diva wide receiver just run amok all over your organization. Eventually, it does this. And it took the Warriors a while, right? They got 4 championships. But after that fourth championship, you kind of knew it was the end, right? Because, like, Jordan Poole was like next up. Draymond Green ruined that. Every time the Warriors might have taken a step to be like go past the dynasty and like just be emblematic of a basketball era, this Draymond Green ruined it, right? Whether it was Kevin Durant, whether it was Jordan Poole, but he was enabled, right? He was enabled by Steve Kerr, right? I think the Warriors made a huge mistake not suspending him for their ring ceremony because they didn't want to, for the good of the team. They wanted him to get his ring. He could have gotten his ring somebody else. They enabled that behavior, and so this is what happens, right? You got a shell of yourself team. More reporting has come out that Klay Thompson didn't want Steph Curry or Draymond Green exercising their influence, right? He wanted Joe Lacob and them to want him, and they didn't want him. And some of that is because of the second apron that we talked about before. But like we see that with the Celtics, right? If these rich owners want to go above and beyond, they will, right? Like, for all the questions that Josh Harris gets, right? We'll get to this in a second. Right now on that roster, especially once Joel Embiid gets his re-up, his next to last supermax, you're gonna have three players on that roster making $600 million between three players on the Sixers in a minute. So it can be done. I mean, what is it? Basically close to like billions of dollars going to between Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, and that's why the owner of the Celtics is getting out now before he has to pay Kristaps Porzingis, right? Like he's getting out now, so he doesn't have to put more billions of dollars to him. But I mean, you don't cry for these billionaire owners because they make it back 82 games, a lot of home games, playoff games. They make their money back. Don't weep for them too much. But like, that's what happens, right? So that's why I'm saying ultimately what killed the Warriors, Draymond Green, arrogance, and Joe Lacob and Bob Myers. Like they didn't appreciate what they had. Those teams were built on Steph Curry and Klay Thompson being great and Draymond Green being good enough to shut you down on defense. But those rings are because of Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. And now half of that duo isn't there, and this is what's going to happen to the Warriors. I just want Warriors fans to be prepared, right? Like, get on your scar from Lion King. Be prepared because Steph Curry is going to make it look good, but you guys are going to be a play-in team unless you find some way to swing Lowry marketing. But even that, Draymond's going to ruin that. Let me just tell you, and you're sensing the theme here, like, Draymond Green is going to find a way to ruin that. Like, I don't know how, but he will.
Yeah, I think I mostly agree with you. I don't know that it'll be as quick as we think it might be, because I think that's just how good Steph is, and how good of a coach Steve Kerr is. But no, I agree with you. It looks like this is the end, right? And truthfully, we've been calling this a Warriors dynasty, but in reality, you really look at it like they have 4 rings. And you say, okay, is it a dynasty, right? They had three rings in 4 years. Then they had a 2-year gap, and then one another one after all of the injuries and stuff. And Steph stepped up and played. Had one of the greatest finals games in NBA history against the Celtics. But the dynasty and how it's kind of panned out is interesting because if you look at the last 5 years, you'd say This isn't a dynasty, right? One ring over the last 5 years. Right now, we didn't expect them to win, 6, 7, 8 rings or anything like that per se, but um, it is truthfully we are nearing the end. I don't think we're quite just there yet. I think the dynasty. I think, despite the failings of the front office, I think if they're able to do something with this roster this year, and like you said, if you got Steph Curry in your team, there's always a chance the same way when you look at a LeBron-led team. You can't really count LeBron out because they're two of the greatest of all time, right? So, are we at the end of the dynasty? Is the dynasty over? I don't think quite just yet. We can't count him out. We can't count Steph out just yet, but I think by the end of this year we'll see, right, what happens. Because if they have another one of those years like they did in 20, I think that was 20. I can't remember what. I guess it was the year in between, in between the Kevin Durant, where there was all the injuries and they were one of the worst teams in the league and ended up getting James Wiseman. If they have another one of those type of years where they're, bottom half of the league, then yeah, I think we can effectively say it's over.
Okay. All right. So getting to what we all came here to talk about. Paul George getting on his Dan Hurley. Another dude left the comforts of home to come to Philadelphia for 4 years, 212 milli. Oh my goodness. Oh, Trey, what's your reaction to this?
So, I think it's a great pickup, right? I've been a fan of, and Kylie, you might actually not even know this. I've been a fan of Paul George for a while, even going back to those Pacers days, despite the fact that I was a fervent Heat fan during those Sixers years where it might not even been worth watching the games during the years of the tanking. But Paul George was like something special, man. And I remember when he got injured in the Olympics and broke his leg on that stanchion, I was like, oh my goodness, this could be the end. He finally came back, took on number 13, became PG-13. And I was happy. So I was like, Paul George is, and for those who are younger who are watching, that Paul George is kind of taken on. He's got some mythos to him, but I love the addition of Paul George. He's a player that can pretty much fit on any team, right? He can be a catch and shoot guy. He can create for himself. He is he's even at the age of 36, I think 35, 36. He's still an incredible defender. The only real question that we have to ask ourselves when it comes to Paul George is injury, right? And last year he did play 74 of 82 games, but that was the first time in like 4 or 5 years that was the case. Obviously, some of that was load management, in years prior, of him missing games. But we'll see. I'm excited for him to be a Sixer. I think Joel Embiid is certainly excited. The Sixers had a great draft, and I think I'm very excited to see what else the Sixers do as far as kind of rounding out the roster around. I think what we can effectively say is a big three of Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, and Joel Embiid, and we'll see where things go from there.
Well, look, man, it's the most legit big three. I said on Facebook, a lot of Sixers fans disagree with me, especially the old Gen Xers who were last born when the championship was done. This is the best offseason the Sixers have had, man. Like, this might be the best offseason in Philly. Like, I don't want to get too crazy, but to me, this might be the best offseason in Philly sports history. Like, I know some people are gonna say like what the Eagles just did, But like, I mean, that was just adding Saquon Barkley. So like, I mean, it wasn't really like a big time off season. Even when they added AJ Brown, I wouldn't call that a big time off season because I
Yeah,
believe.
man. What about the dream team with the Eagles?
Like I feel like this is up there with when they when the Phillies got Bryce Harper, because I think that was the last genuine surprise in Philly sports history, which is up there with this, right? It was genuinely a surprise for some people, even though, as Trey knows, I was at group chats basically saying it's Paul George. Nobody believed me, but it's Paul George. Like I said, he's coming. Because you can kind of tell, right? Because he kind of said this on his podcast, like it wasn't James Harden's fault, but like that team was perfect, so perfectly built around him and Kawhi. Then James Harden came, threw everything out of flux, right? Didn't have Nicholas Batum anymore. Didn't have Rocco. Like, didn't have KJ Martin to steal some minutes. And then it kind of did this in LA, right? And now it's just Kawhi and James Harden and, a bunch of others, right? Kevin Porter Jr., and others there. So, like, I'm very excited that Paul George is there. 22.4 points a game, 38, 39% three-point shooter, one of the best catch and shoot three-point shooters, a shot creator, right? I talked about this in my article, WatsonSportsTakes.com. The third star should be linked down below, right? The third star that was promised, right? Where I go into all this, that Paul George is a great player. His game's gonna mesh perfectly with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. He's not gonna take the ball away from Maxey. I know a lot of people are like, I don't want an actual point guard because we got Maxey. Maxey, that's the thing. That's the next leap for Tyrese Maxey. And I'm just going to preview this right now, right? He's got to now with Paul George and Joel Embiid, he's got to learn to be a better passer, and he was getting there. But I think that him and Joel need to learn. I mean, Joel's good enough for passing, but I think that's next for Tyrese Maxey, right? Get that passing down, especially now without Nicholas Batum. The passing is going to be a little bit lacking now. So I think Tyrese got to get better at passing. Joel, he's already, as we've seen, upped his assists, right? I think that the passing will be good with him. And I think he's in good hands. I think he learned from Nicholas Batum how to pass correctly. We'll see. But I just think that, Paul George, this is a great get. Somebody leaving the West Coast for the Northeast, getting out of his comfort zone. I think this is a championship. Like, I'll get to the next question. I think this is a title contender, man. Like, this is, if they stay on their previous averages, or even if Joel drops, right, 40 points a game. What was Tyrese was 27.6. And Paul George is 22.6. That's 83. Like, that should win you games. That's the best big three scoring trio in the league history. Already before Paul George even came, like, Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey were the best scoring duo in the league. So now you add Paul George to that, somebody who can catch and shoot and create shots. Like, as Trey said, post leg injury, he still got his lift. He still can create. He still can put you on a poster. We talked about 2K. He's still got them ankle breakers. He still got it. Like, he's got the game. 34 years old, man. Like, the Sixers have extended the window now. Now, the window was to be like another, like, 4 to 6 years. I think now it's like 4 to 8, right? Like, I think that as long as Joel Embiid's on the roster, as long as he's happy, as long as Tyrese Maxey's happy, as long as Paul George is happy, right? Like, I feel like in the next maybe I'm gonna be like next 2 to 3 years, I think the Sixers win the title with this trio, just because, like, I talked about it last week. I think the Knicks are going to implode, so they really only have to deal with Boston. And I mean, if Kristaps Porzingis isn't there, Joel Embiid's going to dominate. Even with Kristaps Porzingis there, Joel Embiid's going to dominate. And you have Paul George, which changes the whole equation now. So if he can stay, like, health is always a big thing, but health is a big thing for everybody, right? Like, the Celtics struggling with health, everybody's struggling with health. But, like, if they stay healthy, other than the Celtics, I don't. The Knicks are a non-factor to me. Like, I think you're looking at the Celtics Sixers ECF these next couple of years. That's what I think, and I think that that's going to be the battle for the title. Like, I think I think this is really good on the I-95 corridor. You got the Celtics, you got the Knicks, and you got the Sixers. Everybody else is just irrelevant, but the East is looking pretty stacked, man. Like, I'm gonna go to you. What you think? Legit title contender or faker?
I think there's still some rounding out to do to the roster, but I think with like you said, we got you got three all-stars, two of whom are vets in the league, right? Um, Paul George, and here's where I'll kind of throw in a little bit of a dissenting opinion is none of these guys have really won anything just yet. None of them have been to the well. Paul George may have been to an Eastern Conference Final. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Kylan, but he has not been to a finals um, and hasn't truly won anything for real just yet. Back in the day, he had his run-ins with LeBron, and I think had he not had that leg injury, maybe things would have gone differently. But I think that's probably the most valuable playoff experience he's had in his career. Despite even some of those series being like sweeps or gentlemen sweeps, those were always really tight games. Um, so yes, I do. I think we're a title contender, and the Sixers are a title contender. Absolutely. I mean, you got arguably, I mean, it's one or two, whoever you want to put first, Joel Embiid or Nikola Jokic when you're talking about best center in the league. Joel Embiid is and Jokic are both top 5 players in the league. So you got that going for you. You got Paul George, who's one of the better plug and play type of players in the league, and you got, if he stays at that same level he was giving us last year, you've got a top 8 point guard in the league. So when you have that type of talent on your team, regardless of who you put around them, that just automatically guarantees a certain level of success in the league, right? So that's 50 plus wins, 55 wins, right? Just off the bat, as long as we're healthy. Are we a title contender? I think with the roster we have right now, yes, but there are questions when it comes to injuries, like I mentioned before, and are we able to kind of round out some of the bench and stuff like that? Because if we've seen, right, Joel Embiid can get tired when it gets to the end of the year, right? But with a guy like Paul George, you got Tyrese Maxey. The question for Tyrese, like you mentioned, Kylan, is I think is actually twofold for him. One, can he become more of a floor general, right? And how will that affect his scoring, right? Will he go from 27 to more like 22, 23, but be a better facilitator, right? If he does, then I think we're that much of a team, because even though you dip in back in points, he's creating offense elsewhere through facilitating. And then the other thing is, or I guess I should say even threefold, is can he take another step defensively, right? And the third thing is, I didn't lost my train of thought, but there was 3 things I was going to say.
He getting old. Y'all gotta excuse him. He about to be 28. You gotta excuse him.
But yeah, so for me, I think the biggest question is is overall with the Sixers is injury, right? Can Paul George stay on the court, and can Joel Embiid stay on the court? If those 2 guys stay on the court with Tyrese Maxey, there's no question in my mind that I think it's fair to say you'll see an Eastern Conference Finals, like Colin said, of the Sixers and the Celtics.
Yeah. So, do people owe Daryl Morey an apology? Yes. Like, I truly do think people owe Daryl Morey an apology, just because, like, we went from the summer of Daryl Morey is a liar to Daryl Morey, went and got his big fish, man. Like, we can't, like, other teams were scared, like, as a famous rapper here in Philly say, scared money don't make no money. Shout out Meat Mill, right? Like, that is what happened, right? The Clippers and everybody was scared to put a big 3 together, and Daryl Morey said, not this guy. I'm gonna get my guy. And I feel like he learned the lesson from trying to put Jimmy Butler here, even though that wasn't him. Trying to put Ben Simmons, again, wasn't him. Ben Simmons, Jimmy Butler, Joel Embiid, and Tyrese Maxey together didn't really work out there. And then trying to put, this was him, James Harden, Tyrese Maxey, and Joel Embiid together. And that was more because of, I talked about with the Warriors' ego, that was really because of James Harden's ego, right? Like, and even though, like, I know some people are like, oh, James Harden's teammates with Paul George is going to affect it. But at the end of the day, like Paul George said, it was fit and money. Like, money talks, man. And I think this was the first, like I said, the first offseason in a while where the Sixers actually had, like, big-time money to play with, right? $65 million is nothing to sneeze at. And once they dismiss Paul George, either one way or another, not Paul George, dismiss Paul Reed, one way or another, they'll back up to $15-14 million and can get a Bobby Portis, a Lowry Marketing. We don't know. Probably not Lowry. Let me not get y'all hopes up with that one. More than likely a Bobby Portis or a Dorian Finney-Smith. Once that's solved, man, that's really all they missing, man, is a stretch or somebody who can grab that rebound. So Joel Embiid, they always banging bodies down there, even though he'd be second or third in rebounding anyway. Like, you need another body down there. So Joel Embiid doesn't always have to, like, be down there trying to rebound by himself. And obviously, you got Paul George now, another good rebounder. Like, I honestly just think people definitely owe Daryl Morey an apology. Like, he had his Howie Roseman year, right? Getting these picks, having a good draft. Like, what more can you say? Daryl Morey had a very good offseason so far, and he's not done. So, like, Daryl Morey, like Trey said, still 5 other roster spots to fill. So he's not done. There will be another big splash. He's got to get a power forward in here, probably a couple, because like I said, Paul Reed's probably gonna bye-bye. So, like, I'm on the mindset that this so far is a good offseason. He's still got to fill in some roster spots, mostly on the bench and one starter piece for the power forward. But I think the city, a lot of sports media people, like in my field, owe him an apology. One big guy who's getting banned or soon to be banned by by every sports team in Philly definitely owes him an apology. So I'll just leave it at that because we'll get to him in a minute. Well, not a minute, in a couple segments. So I'm gonna let you go, Trey.
I mean, for me, it's a yes and a no. Like, I think, and even I'm guilty of, saying some things about Daryl Morey as far as, why is he doing this, and especially last year, last off season, and in particular with the Tobias Harris thing. But I think one thing I had to realize, and I think hopefully other Sixers fans or just regular basketball fans who are critics or were critics of Daryl Morey, is that I think it's easy to fall into the trap of to bring up 2K again. It's easy to fall into that 2K off-season trap. For those who play my league, it's pretty easy to trade players and move on from unfavorable contracts, and because it's a video game, right? And sometimes in an off season, the pieces don't fall how you want them, right? The players you want aren't available, or they decide to go elsewhere, right? And so sometimes you gotta, you can't, I wouldn't say that it was a down year or anything like that per se. But sometimes the things that you want to be able to do in the offseason are just not possible, right? You look at Tobias Harris' contract. As much as we would have liked to actually try to trade him, for real, like, if you really look at his contract, it was very unreasonable to try to get rid of his contract. So I guess in some sense, I won't say that anybody owes Daryl Morey an apology. If you decide to give him an apology for, for maybe some of the things people said about him, and he needs to go and all this stuff, if you want to apologize to him, go ahead. In my mind, I think that's just kind of part of being in the front office in the NBA, is that you got to take the criticism and keep it moving. So I don't know that anybody owes him an apology, but if you want to apologize to him in your own way, go ahead.
I mean, look, man, the people owe him an apology. I mean, so we're gonna move right along to something else that happened with the Sixers. Tyrese Maxey gets paid 5 years, $204 million. He need to let me hold $1. Hey, little kid from across the street, let me hold $1. Hey, Everybody hates Chris reference for those of you that don't know. That's what that was. But Tyrese Maxey, man, gets paid. I mean, he totally deserves his money. Am I most improved player, like all-star? I mean, what more can you say, man? One of the top 3-point shooters, like ninth in scoring 4.4 points, like fourth quarter points, like 490 some points. Like I shout out, totally deserved it. Like patience was rewarded, right? If it wasn't for him, there wouldn't have been a max spot. Like shout out to Tyrese Maxey, giving a preview of this shout out segment early. Shout out to Tyrese Maxey, like betting on himself, like not immediately taking his max contract last summer. And him and Joel Embiid really brought in, right? Not this isn't something that we lit a fire under Rich Paul last week. I'm gonna give Tyrese Maxey and Rich Paul their credit. They were patient. Even though James Harden was saying Daryl Morey was a liar and everything, like Rich Paul and them were really patient and believed in Daryl Morey and what the Sixers were doing, and he got $204 million, no player option, really big. It really shows that Tyrese Maxey really trusts this organization, right? Because most players would have a player option, whether that's to opt in or opt out, and he didn't. So big ups to him. The keys to the future are his. And what more can you say, man? I know a lot of people want Tyrese Maxey, and they will not be able to get him for 5 years. What you got to say about this, Trey?
I think it's awesome, right? Like, and because the reality is, I think we actually got him. It's really a steal, right? Because it's a 5-year contract, right? And it's 204 million. So, and he's going to be going forward, and I think kind of already is, getting there. He's gonna be a top, 3 point guard in the league, as long as he's healthy and never, doesn't there's something crazy doesn't happen, and he doesn't just like fall off a cliff. Production wise, like he's going to be one of the best point guards in the league for the rest of his career. And so for the next 3-4 years, realistically, you got him for a general steal. And honestly, he's one of my favorite players, right? Period. Just not because he's a Sixer. When he was drafted, they interviewed Coach
Calipari.
Coach Calipari, and he spoke very, very highly of Tyrese Maxey. And I remember watching some of his tape, and I was like, okay, I'm with it, because I didn't really know much about him. I hadn't watched much college basketball that year, and I was like, all right, I'm with it. I think he's something special. And so he deserves it. He's a great player, deserved to be an all-star, right? And deserved to get paid. So
yeah, I mean, that's the franchise, man. That's why he's called the franchise. All right, so Simone Biles makes another gymnastics Olympics team. Her and Suni Lee. I mean, what a year for comebacks between her and Suni Lee, man. Great roster. I'm gonna let you start here, because I'm going to show the people the roster. But you go right ahead. I'm gonna let you go.
Yeah, I mean, Simone Biles. I have no words. I just saw a video earlier of her, and it was like a video of her midair, and like she's like literally like some crazy, like in the video the guy describes like how high she was off the ground, like, and does some math about how tall she is, and how essentially she jumped so high in the air that she could have cleared Shaq like easily, right? And so Simone Biles is right, like she is, I mean, what, 20, I think she might be younger than me, 25, 26, right? And she's like,
stand by, I'll look it up.
One of the greatest, athletes of our time, right? She's 27, so we're the same age. She's a month younger than me. But yeah, man, I there's nothing, I can't, there's like no words, right? Like, I don't even, to be truthful, I don't generally pay attention to gymnastics, but I'm gonna watch Simone Biles, right? Like, she's an anomaly. She has an argument, like, right, if she continues this stretch of dominance, and when it comes to gymnastics, but just generally as an athlete, like, we got to throw her up there as one of the greatest athletes, right?
Oh,
So
she's already up there as a gymnastics go for
right.
me. Her and Gabby. She's ahead of Gabby, but Gabby was the first, so gotta give Gabby her props. But like her and Suni Lee, man, like I gotta give Simone Biles and Suni Lee their credit recovering from two different things. Obviously, Suni Lee has a debilitating, I believe, kidney disease, sort of like what Venus Williams has. And there was some question about if she would even be able to compete or do gymnastics anymore. I know she had to end her collegiate career at Auburn early because of that. And she's had some personal things. I think there's rumors about her and her family not getting along because of who she likes to date. Nothing like no, I'm not about to reveal that she's gay because she's straight. But if you've seen she's dating a football. I believe she might, at least to my knowledge, she was dating a football player on the team. On Auburn's team, I believe he was black, so you can read between the lines what the problem was there. So like I am of the mindset that like when you overcome stuff like Suni Lee and Simone Biles did, I mean, give Jay Carey credit too. Like on the last Olympics team, like we've got three on the Olympics team. You've got three Olympians from at least the last two or three Olympics teams that won gold medals. So this is a strong women's team. I want to shout the men out too, even though I don't really like during the Olympics. I watch the women's gymnastics more than I watch the men because the men are really non-starters. I think they finally won a bronze medal for the first time in like years in Tokyo. So like I'll give the men their credit, but the women really dominate here. And so I'm really happy for Simone Biles, really happy for Jade Carey, really happy for Jordan. I mean, the top four names are former Olympians from like not even like a couple years ago, but last Olympics, right? Like that's four former Olympians right there from Tokyo, right? Suni, Jordan Childs, Jade Carey, Simone Biles, like that's like the Olympics team for like the last couple of years. So shout out to Simone for overcoming all her mental stuff, getting married, still being happy. I mean, because 27, I'm just gonna say 27 is old in gymnastics. We've had this conversation, right? Gymnasts really like at 27, you're off to the side. You're doing what Lori Hernandez is doing basically now. You're broadcasting. You're in your second career. You're not really doing gymnastics anymore. So shout out to Simone Biles. I believe Suni Lee too, because she's also in her 20s. Like once you hit 20, it's over for you in gymnastics. I know Trey knows some former gymnasts too. Like it's said like once you hit your 20s, unless you're doing collegiate gymnastics, like it's over for you as far as national competitions. Like they'll bring you out. I don't mean to make it seem like they're like really, really old, right? But like they'll will you out for like the national team tours or something. But for the most part, you're done competing at Olympics because there is all due respect to Hazley Rivera. There is a 16-year-old, but usually that's a teenage 16 to 20 Olympics team is what happens for the youth for this country. But we've got at least three that I know of between Jordan Childs, Suni Lee, and Simone Biles that are at least 20 and up. Like, and that was the joke last time. Like Simone Biles was the old woman because everybody else was like 21, 19, 18, and she was the old woman at 26. So, I big ups to her, Suni Lee, Jordan Childs, Hazley Rivera, Jocelyn Robertson. Fun story there. Jocelyn was like a little kid. And like when Simone Biles and Gabby Douglas, Raceman and all them, she actually took a picture with them, and now she's teammates with her hero, Simone Biles. She did a whole report on it. If y'all haven't paid attention on Instagram or something, there's like a whole write up, an Instagram story on it. Definitely check that out. But shout outs to all the people who made the Olympics team and Simone Biles leading this team. We expect a lot of gold on this team, or at least silver and stuff. Really, really well-rounded team. Trey, you got anything more to add to that?
No, I'm in agreement with you. Well-rounded team, and on both for men and women's, but Suni Lee and Simone Biles, like you mentioned, are phenomenal.
And Jordan Childs. Let's not forget Jordan Childs.
Yes.
Uh, so great job for all of them. So we're gonna move right along to the WNBA All Star selection. Right. So as we expected, Caitlin Clark and Asia Wilson. Asia Wilson stayed put at 95,000, but Caitlin Clark had 700,000 votes. I'm gonna pull up. I'm gonna present again. So hold up. But Trey, if you want to start on your reactions to the All Star team, or do you want to wait for me to pull it up?
No, you're good. So I mean, we kind of briefly touched on this last week, and I think it's it's funny. I think Caitlin deserves to be an all-star. I think obviously Angel deserves to. Um, but I think it's interesting because if you look at the voting, I think Caitlin was like number 2 in voting, right? Despite her not even being a top 5 player in the league. Um, so, but I mean, I think I didn't see any from what I saw on the list. I didn't see any like big snubs or anything like that. Um, the players,
There you go.
it seems like
There's the top five right there. The top five
yeah,
votes.
yeah, there you go. So Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, Asia Wilson, Brianna Stewart, Angel Reese. Um, with there being a pretty big drop off between from Asia Wilson to Brianna Stewart. About 200, what is that? 200, just a little under 200,000 or a little over 200,000 drop off. But nonetheless, I didn't see any like big snubs or anything like that. I think the people who should have made it, right? I did see a couple people confused because they're like, wait, they're already at the All-Star break? Yes, they're already at the All-Star break. There's only a 40-game season, so most teams are about approximately halfway through. Obviously not every team has played 20 games, but most teams are approximately around there.
Yeah, and it's going to be longer this year because of the Olympics. So instead of ending in October or September, I think it'll be over around when the NBA starts. There'll be some little crossover there. But yeah,
Yep.
I'm excited for all the women, specifically Asia Wilson and Caitlin Clark. What do you think? Caitlin Clark, because of her fandom, right? Obviously, they were going to make sure that she was in this game. And that's exactly what they did. And it's kind of unique this year. You get Team WNBA versus Team USA. Get a little preview for the Olympics, right? So I think it'll be a very very good exhibition for women's basketball. I mean, like I said, I mean we can just hit the next question. I don't think I really see any snubs here. Like unlike with Team USA, Erica Gumbawale made it, so I don't really have any like big snubs here for that. So that would have been my biggest snub. Like how does the lead score and not make the team, but she made the All Star team, but not Team USA. But we move anyway. But are you excited for Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese to team up? I am. I think that I'm not sure if they'll ever like actually be teammates. Obviously, they'll both will have long careers, so we'll see. But I think I'm good. I think Caitlin Clark said this is the first time that they will ever team up for the All Star game, like ever. Even when they used to do like tryouts in high school for Team USA, like they were always on opposing teams. Obviously, two different positions, and as we've seen with both of their immense talent, it wouldn't be fair for them to be on the same team ever. Like that would definitely be a super team with them two on the same team. But this is going to be interesting to see them go up against Aja Wilson, Brianna Stewart, Sabrina Ionescu, and all the Team USA Olympians. So I'm very interested to see this. I might tune in 17 days when this goes, July 20th, right before the Olympics. I'll probably be busy with college football 25, but I'll put that on pause to watch the WNBA All Star game just to see Sabrina and Caitlin go at it. And Kelsey Plum, I mean, we saw Kelsey Plum tear her up just this week, 34 points. So I'm down to see that again. Them going back and forth in the All Star game. Obviously, and they don't try as much, but I mean the women, the WNBA All Star game is competitive, so NBA All Star game is competitive as well, but WNBA is a little bit more competitive. So I'm excited to see this. And I'm excited to see the team up. I'm excited for the alley oop attempts. We'll find out if Angel Wilson can dunk in this game. I'll be really excited to figure out if that's a thing or not. So. And I'm not doing that to knock her, but I really want to see because we know that Caitlin Clark, the one thing she can do besides shoot is pass. So I'm looking forward to seeing if Lob City happens during this All Star game. Anything more to add, Trey?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna be cool. I've actually never watched the WNBA All Star game, but I will watch this year. So I'm excited to kind of see what happens, kind of what that looks like. Obviously, you're thinking about other All Star games, and whether it's the NBA or other sports, it's typically an opportunity to kind of show off, right? So I'm interested to see, what's going to happen, right? Truthfully, I think it's going to be fun to see them team up. But I am, in future years interested also to see them not be on the same All-Star team, on the same team in the All-Star game, and kind of go at it and just for this, for the heck of it. Similar to, some of the other greats that we've seen in like the NBA, go at it in in any particular All-Star game. That picture of LeBron and Kobe is brought to mind, right? So I'm interested to see, who gonna get crossed up. Well, are we gonna try to see some lobs thrown, some dunks maybe,
Yeah.
some half court threes. I'm sure from Caitlin Clark.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think you're definitely going to see more of an exhibition from Team WNBA more than Team USA. Obviously, playing that timing of this All Star game really doesn't help them because then 6 days later they have to be in Paris. So I don't think that helps them. But maybe there'll be a lot of substitution so they don't wear themselves out before they have to play again.
right,
And so but yeah, like you said, I'm interested to see the exhibition, and I pray nobody gets injured, specifically on the women's basketball team, because we're already seeing it with what happened with Cam Brink and what's going on with the 3-on-3 team and how the injury bug is biting them early. So, we're praying that that doesn't happen with the Team USA and the All Star game going, because no one wants to see an injury, whether it's to the Olympics team or to the WNBA teams. So, we just hope that everybody plays well and there's no injury. That's what I'll say. Have fun, no injury on either side. So, all right. So, like we do every week, top four WNBA teams right now. I can start here. So, my top two is still unchanged: Connecticut Sun, New York Liberty. I the Liberty are still a dominant team. So are the Connecticut Sun, like Lissa Thomas, Sabrina Ionescu, John Quill Jones. I feel like I've seen the praises of both those teams all the time. Again, can't count out the Minnesota Lynx, but I'm gonna steal one from Trey, man. The Aces, like, they're 5-0 since Chelsea Gray came back. The passing dynamo and scoring dynamo that is Chelsea Gray, Jackie Young, like that's an all-star team. That's definitely a team that now that Chelsea Gray's back, it's definitely going to be in the WNBA finals. It'll probably end up either being them or the Liberty or them or the Sun. So I'm really excited to see that. And again, you can't count out. Again, I gotta make it a tie once again between the Lynx. You might as well just call them the Collins, Minnesota Lynx, and the Seattle Storm, because I'm always singing the praises of those two teams. So yeah, that's my top five, really top four, with two teams tied for fourth right there. I don't.
yeah,
I feel like I laid into it last week, so I don't think I really need to analyze it anymore than saying that obviously the Liberty and the Sun are the two best teams right now, and they're both in the same conference. But I think the WNBA doesn't do their playoffs by conferences anymore. It's the top 10, top 12 teams. So go right ahead, Trey. I'm sorry.
No, I think I'm in agreement with you. I think it's it's really the Liberty, the Sun, the Lynx, and then it's a toss up between the Storm and the Aces. For me, I'm gonna go with the Aces again, same as last week. But I think there's some teams to watch out for. Like, you got to watch out for the Sky. And a team that actually surprised me, my home state team right now, is the Atlanta Dream. Is right after we finished that conversation about top WNBA teams, they went out and beat the Connecticut Sun. So I'm not. I'm. You look at that roster, and then they've got an all-star on their team, and two potential. They had one all-star and one that could have been an all-star on the team. But yeah, I think that's a team to watch out. They're not top four team in the league necessarily, but watch out, because like I was actually frankly shocked that they were able to beat the Sun. So yeah, top four: Liberty, Liberty, Sun, Lynx, Aces, but it's like I said, it's interchangeable between the Aces and the Storm.
All right. So to shout out segment. So and start here. Like we already did the shout outs for the Olympics team, but shout out to Bryce Harper and all the other Phillies All Stars. That was announced today, I believe. So shouts out to Bryce Harper and them. Oh, let me stop presenting. Shout outs to Bryce Harper and all the other All Stars on the Phillies team. Phillies are the best baseball team in the league. Obviously, for those of you that are looking for some symmetry, I mean, we've had some symmetry with the repeat of the Chiefs and the 49ers. And the last time that happened, like that was indicative of the election. Like I'm not again not trying to be political, but looking at parallels here that happened in 2022 as well. So like we'll see. But the last time the Celtics won the championship, this will probably give the extreme Phillies fans, which we're Phillies fans, but not extreme Philly fans, hope. Like the last time the Celtics won the championship in 2008, the Phillies won the championship in October. Now, does that mean the Phillies will win this year? I have no idea. They the one game that Trey and I attended together, like they lost to the Mets in extra innings. I told Trey that would happen once Bryce Harper struck out. But we'll see. I mean, they just got to get healthy, right? Get Bryce Harper back in there. And they're also missing Riamuto as well. Like, it's a bad injury bug is biting the Phillies right now, but they're still the best team in the league. So, what more can you say, man? Shout out to Bryce Harper and all the other Phillies All Stars as well. I think we did the Olympics team. Oh, so shout out. Speaking of that team, like shout out to, I believe her name is Hazley. Forgive me for butchering it to all the Spanish people that may or may not watch this show. If I butchered it, my bad. I mean, I should know this as somebody with a unique name, but I'm not Latin, even though I know I know between Trey and me, we probably could fool some people. Not Latin at all, but Hazley Rivera, I believe her name is, 16 years old, made it on the Olympics team. Not as an alternate either, as a starter starter on the gymnastics, on our Olympic gymnastics team at 16 years old. So shout out to her. And then I believe the track team added a 16-year-old runner as well from Baltimore. I think ironically, I think his name is Paris as well. So shout out to him. I think he's from Baltimore. So shout out to him as well. So two 16-year-olds making it to their first Olympics at 16. Really, what it is all about. So, I mean, what more can you say on that? And obviously, I don't know if we did this last time, but shout out Trey if I did it, let me know. Shout out to Shikari as well. We talked about people overcoming stuff, overcoming the weed, the thing, relative dying, the weed, not really a weed addiction, but the weed test, and now an Olympian, and it seems like it's set up for her to win. I don't want to say count the goose before they hatch, but like it seems like it's set up because I think Shelly-Ann Fraser Price from Jamaica isn't going to compete this year. She didn't make it. That's one of the things about track, as Trey and I know, only the top three make it, and it's unfortunate, but that's what happens. You can't send a full track team because if they could send a full track team, America would dominate, but you can't do it. It's top three go through or top two go through. So shout out to Shikari overcoming all that adversity. See a theme there with my shout out series. But that's it for me, Trey.
Honestly, I really only got one shout out, and that's to Sydney McLaughlin Levrone. And I don't know if you heard Kylan, but she broke the record. Like she destroyed the record for the 400-meter hurdles course in trials by like 4 seconds.
And she beat herself, right? Because that was a record.
Yeah, she beat. I believe she beat herself by like. Yeah, it says she beat her last record by 0.03 seconds, which for those who are watching, 0.03 seconds doesn't sound like a lot, but in running, 0.03 seconds is a pretty big deal. And that's in trials, right? So shout out to her because that's crazy. Like I didn't know much about her, but when I saw what she had done, I had to. And I was like, all right, let me look this girl up. And my understanding is she had disappeared from the 400 meters. She didn't compete for like 2 years or so, and has come back this year and now just comes out of the blue and destroys her own record. So, which was previously also the world record for the 400 meter in trials, not even in the actual official race. So shout out to her.
All right. Well, that does it for our shout out series. Again, like you can hit us up at Colin W. Watson and Mr. Taylor 3. Let us know if there's shout outs because we not, as you've seen, we can go international, we can go local, whatever y'all want. Let us know if there's some positive stories of people you think you need to shout out, whether that's in the sports world or not. Let us know. So he's not him, she's not her, and they aren't them. You want to start or should I?
You can go ahead, start.
All right, so I only have one this time, and I think Trey knows who my he's not him is. I love frying this guy up, but unfortunately, we got to do it under really bad circumstances. Howard to the floor, man. Howard Eskin. I don't know why I forgot his name for a minute there. Howard Eskin, like I Trey knows there's nothing I love more than frying him up, but unfortunately, man, I have to be respectful here because this is for those that don't know. I mean, Howard Eskin is a Philly reporter, basically a sports reporter. Has been here for forever, like 30, 40
Mm-hmm.
years, reporting on all four local teams. So what has happened is he's been banned from Citizens Bank Park because he for lack of a better term, sexually assaulted a female worker in the Philly stadium. Now we don't know how recently that is, but it's came to light. The Phillies investigated it and banned him from the clubhouse and from the Citizens Bank Park. Now the Sixers have banned them from their practice facility as well, and they are looking there because the Sixers, this has come up. They don't own the Wells Fargo Center, so they have to ask Comcast to ban him, which I think they will. You don't want to put none of the female staff of the Sixers or the female staff in the Wells Fargo Center in danger. So he definitely should be banned. I mean, for kissing a woman, or I think that was the allegation, right? Kissing a woman, without her consent.
It's an
And,
unwelcome kiss of an
yeah,
Aramark employee.
yeah, unwelcome kiss with an Aramark employee. So, like, it's a crazy time for him, and he deserves to be banned if that's what happened. And it seems like the Phillies were able to confirm that this did happen through their investigation. So I can say that it has been confirmed, or he wouldn't be banned from the Philly Stadium. So the Sixers are going to ban him. What's really going to hurt him because he's basically an Eagles inside reporter. If the Eagles uh, should be doing the right thing, and they probably will, they will ban him because I know that they have zero tolerance for this too. Like they will ban him from Lincoln Financial Field and from the practice center as well, from NovaCare. So that's really going to hurt him as well. But somehow he still keeps his job. So my he's not him to Howard Eskin. I lied. My they aren't them following from that is WIP. Because why is this man still employed now that we have confirmation? I know his son is over there too. Like I know it's weird to fire your father or put him on suspension, but that's why that should be taken out of his hand, and upper management at Odyssey, who owns WIP, needs to take him off the air. I don't say this lightly, but it's confirmed. I know Odyssey said we weren't able to confirm it, but I mean the Phillies were able to confirm it, so it wasn't that hard. So like I'm just saying that because if the Phillies were able to confirm it, it seems relatively quickly. Again, I don't know if it was recent or something that was done a few months ago, but I feel like WIP needs to take him off the air. WIP already has other issues with the fact that they have a lot of a lot of a lot of people who have suspect takes, and then like the diversity that they have is all former athletes, so they have other things that I could take them to task for as well. But on this case, Howard Eskin needs to be taken off the air and suspended from being assigned to any sports teams or doing anything in the city right now, because it's a liability to have him associated with your company right now, because that's just what he did. My question then it goes as a journalist is, okay, so we know what you did in the Philly stadium, but you go to the Eagles, you go to Lincoln Financial Field. You're not at Wells Fargo Center all the time, but you're there during the playoffs. What you did there, like you're at Odyssey at least every Saturday. So like, what are you doing in their headquarters, which is conveniently located on Market Street? I'm not telling anybody to go there, but it's hard to miss, as Trey knows. So like, it's a thing. Like I think WIP and Odyssey are doing a disservice. He should be like, go ahead, take paid leave, take a vacation, like just go away, But so that's why he's not him. Howard Eskin and my they aren't them. 94 WIP and Odyssey. Go ahead, Trey.
Yeah. This is always a tricky one for me, right? But I think I'm going to say, I would have said my he's not him is Chante Porter.
And you can have him, bro. Like we talked
but
about him, but you can have him.
but well, he is up there. But another one in recent memory, and he constantly is saying things. This is not necessarily anything he said within the last week or so, but um, is Dave Portnoy.
Oh yeah,
And for those who don't know, Dave Portnoy is, I guess technically now again the CEO of Barstool
Barstool.
Sports. For a little bit, he wasn't really involved because he had sold the company and was tangentially involved, and now he's back involved. Um, but going back to the whole Caitlin Clark, and I've seen a number of his takes on Caitlin Clark, and I think the reason why he's not him right now, despite the fact that he can often be pretty funny, and I do enjoy watching his one bite pizza reviews that actually aren't one bite, is that he is incredibly biased, and I've even heard him say some pretty nasty things in favor of Caitlin Clark, but to the detriment of Andrew Reese. Um, so if I were to, I won't say too much else, but I'm going to say he's not him, and I'd say he's been my donkey of the last couple months. So there you go.
All right. Well, look, man, that is the show. Thank you all for listening and or listening later. So happy 4th of July weekend. Shouts out to forgot to shout her out, but we did enough shout outs last week for her. But shout out to Morgan and her husband Dan, getting married last weekend on their honeymoon, I believe,
Yep,
in
congrats.
Bali right now. So like yeah, Mr. and Mrs. Bedard. Shout out to both of them. Continue to enjoy your honeymoon. We will keep the seat warm for Morgan when she comes back, and then go and then goes off again for the Olympics. So yeah, man. So shout out to all of you, man. Enjoy your 4th of July weekend. Thank you, Trey, for being here once again. For the people
Yep.
who may not have listened last week or maybe just catching up, where can they find you at, my brother?
So as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, Instagram is Mr. Taylor at Mr. Taylor the third, MrTayloriii, Mr. Taylor the third. If you want to go follow me on Twitter, feel free to. It's my name is Clarence Taylor, so just spell my name backwards, first name backwards, last name backwards. And then also go check out my YouTube channel, Mr. Taylor Movies. There's a couple short films on there. I'm a filmmaker, in addition to being an accountant. But go check that out. Give those a like or comment. Tell me what you think. And again, thank you for having me on, Kylan.
No problem, man. As always, guys, thank you so much. Like I said, happy 4th of July weekend to everybody who celebrates. Have a great day. And if you don't celebrate, hey, man, enjoy the off day and enjoy some ribs. See y'all. See y'all later.
Peace.